line due to new and we will say that production of sir. Sir is ex professor and HOD Department of Agat Tantra, Tidak Ayurved Mahavidyalaya. Sir is currently associated with research department of Savitribai Phule University Pune. The special unit which is established for Ayush research, sir is associated with that, and sir is in the field of research since many years. So I will request sir to start with this presentation.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Today is Akshaya Tritiya, and it is the birthday of Basavaraj. His main contribution to Ayurveda is a book called as Basavarajiyam, and in it is said that in Kruta Yuga, Charak was the bearer of Ayurveda. In Treta Yuga, it was Sushruta. In Dwapara Yuga, it was Vagbhata. And in
Yes.
So in this lecture, I'm going to use the word user perspective. And user can be a common man, user can be a student, user can be a teacher, user can be a cleaner. From user point of view, I got the admission to BAMS course. And believe me, it was a cultural shock. I had been trained in such a way up to that point that it was very hard to just imagine whatever was going on in the class, because I had been to pre-degree and first year science, or intermediate science as it was called at that time, and I was trained in hardcore sciences like chemistry, physics, biology, mathematics. At that time, there was a situation that those who wanted to go to medical, they had to abandon mathematics and take biology. I took it as a challenge because right from the beginning, I was my thinking was mathematical kind of thinking. And I was very proficient in mathematics, but I took up biology as a challenge because puzzle solving and meeting challenges uh, was something inbuilt in me. And I was raised to be very critical. I remember when one of my neighbors was sub-editor of newspaper, and every day he got various newspapers mm, delivered to his home, and I was his favorite bacha. So which was reported in the news was reported in a different manner by each newspaper. So from very early school age, I got to know that there are many perspectives to look at any kind of subject. And I was very critical and tried to find out what is the truth between them. So, kind of thinking was set. And I was always asking questions. That is a tendency in youth. And I was always looking for alternative explanations, how something can happen in a different way. What is the other explanation? Because mm, reading all those newspapers, the same news reported from different party point of view, everything was twisted according to the philosophy of that party. So I developed a knack of getting to the truth after uh, getting all the perspectives of that particular news. And with this mindset, when I came to Ayurveda, it was really a very big culture shock because from the day one, we were told that Aptavachan is the biggest praman. If something is said in Samhita, then you have to blindly believe it. Ayurvedopadesheshu videha paramadaraha, etc., etc., etc. And this was something totally against my upbringing. But I'm also I am also voracious reader. You can say omnivorous reader. No subject is banned from my reading. And so I said, okay, let us see what is written in the Samhitas. Our teachers are saying that you should blindly believe them. In front of them, I will always bow my head and will say that, yes, I absolutely believe in that. But in my mind, I will definitely seek for different proofs. And as I started learning, in the first year when I had to learn Padartha Vijnan in itself, it was just for the examination point of view. So everything was just crammed and vomited in the paper. And my seniors were also telling me that once you get through this first year, you will never need Padartha Vijnan. That was the point of view of most of our seniors. teachers of any subject other than Padartha Vijnan. Everybody was saying that Padartha Vijnan is bunkus. There is no need to remember it throughout your life. You just remember everything on the day of examination, recite at the Viva, write down in the paper, get through this first year, and then you won't need it throughout your life. That was the advice given by my elders, my seniors, even my teachers. So I was in a dilemma. If it is so useless subject, then why keep it in the syllabus? But fortunately, I met many gurus, and those gurus, I would say, Krutsno hi lopo buddhimatam acharya. In that sense, the whole world is my guru. But some personalities definitely influenced me. And they gave me an orientation towards Ayurveda. First thing I learned was Ayurveda is a very practical science. Everything in Ayurveda is useful in our life. Then, second thing I learned was my upbringing was very correct, and to understand Ayurveda properly, you have to be critical, you have to ask questions, and you have to look for alternative explanations. This was the orientation given by my gurus. Gurus like with the Bharpu Nanal, with the Madhav Kolhatkar, with the Yogo Joshi, with the Madhav Shastri Shende, many stalwarts. I was also very close to about 50 different families, Vaidya families in Pune. Every family has a different style of practice. And I was roaming in their clinics and gathering tidbits of knowledge. And everywhere I found that my upbringing was the correct way of learning Ayurveda and not what is taught in the college. Our education system is distorted. In previous Gurukulas, raising questions was encouraged. It was said that na aprushtah guravah vadanti. Your teachers will not tell you anything until you ask them. And this is seen when you read the Samhitas. Now, for every trait that I have said, there are some specific verses in Ayurveda that tell the same thing. So, in Roga Vishajitiya Viman Adhyay of Charaka, various things are told there, but one of the verse in them is Siddhanto Nama Saha Yaha Parikshakaihi Bahuvidham Pariksham Hetubhishcha Sadhayitva Sthapyate Nirnayah. So, anything which gets established in the science, in the Ayurveda, is tested by many examiners in different ways, using different logics, using different experiments. And after collecting all this evidence, then any Siddhanta is accepted in the science. Now, there are various types of Siddhantas. One of them is Abhyupagama Siddhanta. I came across this Abhyupagama Siddhanta and got interested in it. Then I started teaching research methodology. From a student perspective, I'm moving to a teacher perspective. In research methodology, at first we used to use some textbooks which said that there are various kinds of hypotheses. There is null hypothesis, then there is alternative hypothesis. While in school, I had learned in mathematics that there are various methods of proofs. One of them is reductio ad absurdum. Means you assume something and then take it to its logical end. And if you find that there are inconsistencies, then you reject whatever you have assumed. So that kind of thinking is used in many of the theorems in mathematics. Reductio ad absurdum. So I was familiar with this kind of thinking. And when I was reading this Roga Vishanchitiya Viman, I came across this Abhyupagama Siddhanta. Now what is an Abhyupagama Siddhanta? Abhyupagama Siddhanta Nama Saha Yam Artham Asiddham Aparikshitam Anupadishtam Ahetukam Va Vadakale Abhyupagachanti Bhishaja. So this is for the purpose of argument. Vadakale. So Abhyupagama Siddhanta is something which is resorted by physicians at the time of arguments. And what kind of hypothesis is it? It is asiddha. There is no conclusive proof. It is aparikshita. It has not been tested experimentally or by any other praman. It is not told in the Upadesh, Anupadishtam. It is not in the Granthas. And there is no hetu or similarity. Nothing to indicate that this particular thing is true. For something to be true, either it must have sufficient evidence, or it must be proven by experiment, or it must be included in the Samhitas, or we have enough indications to deduce something. If any of these things are not there, then it is called as Abhyupadama Siddhanta. If all these things are there, then it will be a Siddhanta, proper Siddhanta. It may be Sarvatantra Siddhanta or Adhikaran Siddhanta or Ekatantra Siddhanta, whatever. Once it is properly proved, it has experimental evidence. It is included in some Aptavachana, or we show sufficient examples of the same phenomenon, then it is Siddhanta. But if it is not so, then it is called as Abhyupadama Siddhanta. And this Abhyupadama Siddhanta tells me that being critical is essential to learn Ayurveda. Now, second trait that I was talking about was to raise queries. I was always questioning, and usually in Ayurvedic colleges, what I have seen over the years is what we call in Marathi as Gappa Basa. So, Chup Raho culture is there in most of the Ayurvedic colleges. Students are discouraged from asking questions. But what is the way to learn? As told by the Granthas, there are 4 steps. 4 steps to learn Granthas. First is Padarcheda. You have to break the samasas or sandhis and separate each and every pada of a verse. Now, second step is Padartha, means you assign the appropriate meaning to every word. That is the second step. So Padached gives you a sentence. Padartha gives you the meaning of that sentence. So these 2 steps are essential just to understand what is going on or what is stated. But the next 2 steps in understanding any kind of grantha are most critical. And those steps are Akshep and Samadhan. Akshep, once you have a statement, you try to dissect it as much as possible. You try to find out the loophole. You try to find out the weaknesses of that statement. That is the task which should be done after you learn about simple meaning of the statement. Akshep. If you go to any of the tika, That tika goes in the same manner. First, there is Padached. Of course, not every pada is described separately, but uh, crucial Padached will always be there in the tika. Then the simple meanings will be given. That, for example, say in the shlok there is word Shugala Vinna. Now, that is a rare name of a vanaspati. So Tikakar will give you its popular name, Prushniparani. So that is Padarthokti. Means this particular word is used in formulation, and this particular word means this particular herb. Because what we find in Ayurveda is same name is given to many herbs. So we don't know which herb is to be used in a particular formulation. So Tikakar will give you whatever he has learned in his parampara, and that is Padarthokti. But the next step is Akshay. Tikakar will raise objections. He will raise many objections and answer them. So Akshep and Samadhan, if it is done properly, then you go further in your knowledge of particular sutra. So to understand the sutra, to assimilate that sutra, and to be able to use that sutra in different conditions, you need to go through these four steps: Padached, Padarthokti, Akshepa, and Samadhan. So, proper method of learning Ayurveda is to raise queries. So, whatever I was taught in my childhood was correct method. We have to raise questions. That is extremely important. And one thing I learned when I visited so many Vaidya families in Pune, their clinics, unless I asked something, they never told me anything. So again, I asked one Vaidya, why it is so? Why don't you explain to me without asking? So he told me, "Na aprishtaha guravo vadanti." Unless you ask, Guru will not tell you. Now, this questioning may not be anything direct. It may be just your raised eyebrow, but your Guru will understand that you have a query, and then Guru will tell you what to do. In Gurukula system, it was very easy because there was very close contact of gurus and shishyas. But in college system, this is not happening, and chup raho culture, paav lagu culture is there, and that is detrimental to learning Ayurveda. Now, we have to seek alternative explanations, or puzzle solving, this kind of thing, means we have seen many of the puzzles where one kind of explanation does not fit. So another kind of explanation will fit. Now, in this period of lockdown, many puzzles are traveling on WhatsApp and all the social media, and everywhere you will find that out of the box thinking is mainly required for getting to the answer. So when I see a patient, now I am coming to clinician perspective. When I see a patient, I see that there is pain. That patient is telling me that he's in pain. I see that the movements of that part are perfectly okay. Then I'll ask myself a question whether whatever patient is telling is correct or not. Patient is telling me that he has got headache, and I don't see any kind of stiffness in his head muscles, neck muscles, or shoulders, or eyebrows. No stiffness anywhere. And patient is telling me that I have an headache. I will be very skeptical about that. Because whenever there is headache, there will be contraction of small muscles, there will be stiffness. So in that case, I will seek an alternative explanation. What is the cause behind patient's statement that he is having headache? Suppose that particular patient is a schoolboy. He may be pretending to have headache to skip his school. That is an alternative explanation. Sometimes it may be attention-seeking behavior of a housewife. Her husband may not be listening to her, ignoring her, then she will complain of headache. There won't be actual headache, but she will complain of headache. So, for in each and every patient, we have to seek alternative explanations, rule out the possibilities, and then arrive at a diagnosis. So, seeking alternative explanations for each and everything, it's a way to learn about a patient. Now, I was talking about the orientation given to me by my gurus. First thing was be practical. Ayurveda is extremely practical science. Whenever you are learning anything, try to find out how you can use that particular information or tool in your practice. So I was very confused in early days of my learning, because one thing, as I already told you, that my elders always said that you have to forget Padartha Vijnan after you pass your first BMS. But some of the gurus said that no, you have to think of ways how this particular sutra is going to be useful to me. That should be your orientation. So I was extremely confused. How do I use Sanyukta Samaved Samavaya in my clinical practice or anywhere in my life? But here I would like to share with you why I think this is important. There is a very interesting story of Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Arthur Conan Doyle was a doctor, and when he was studying, one of his teachers inculcated some principles about diagnosis in Dr. Arthur Conan Doyle. And when Arthur Conan Doyle created his famous detective Sherlock Holmes, he used those principles. And there is one very important message in a story called as Silver Blaze. You can read it by going online and searching for it. But I'll tell you the story in short. It is a racehorse who has gone missing, and police and Sherlock Holmes both are looking for that horse. The trainer of that horse is found dead, and police have already searched the area. And when Sherlock Holmes arrives at the crime scene, he looks everywhere and finds out a small burnt matchstick. The police asks him, inspector asks him, we have searched this area for so many times with a fine tooth comb. We couldn't find this burnt matchstick. How did you find it? The answer given by Sherlock Holmes is extremely important. He said, I was looking for it. In his theory of about that crime, he expected to find a burnt matchstick at the scene of crime. And therefore, when he searched the area, he was looking for that burnt matchstick and he found it. So, my guru told me this story and said, whatever sutra you are learning, try to find out a way where it will be useful. Initially, it was a very difficult task, but slowly I learned to think of ways in which any particular sutra or information can be used. Another incident with my guru was there were many seminars and workshops and things going on, and they were so mediocre. I was fed up with that. And I was talking with my guru, Vidraj Bhapu Nanal, that I am not going to register for this particular seminar. He asked me, why? Why you are not going to this seminar? He said, I said, there is no outcome of these seminars, nothing to take home. So why waste my time? At that time, he said, okay, then why don't you organize a seminar which will have a definite output? You should try to create benchmarks. That was the orientation given by my guru. And in research methodology, when I was teaching, I again revisited Padartha Vijnan books, and there I found that many of the methodologies that I was teaching are already very well described in Ayurveda, and Samhitas themselves are benchmarks, and we need to create more benchmarks to understand them in current language. Raising questions until satisfied, it's an essential quality for a researcher. May not be required for the student or a clinician, but a researcher needs to raise questions until he is satisfied. Now, you should always keep using various tools at your disposal. The practice of using these tools will make you perfect. That was the orientation given by gurus. And the next thing is you should try different toolboxes. This I learned from the famous Nobel laureate physician Feynman. It's book. Surely you must be joking, Dr. Feynman. Shaped my thinking to a very great extent, and he always said that he used different toolboxes. Means while solving physics problem, he used mathematics, or for solving problems in biology, he used chemistry or physics. Means different tool set was used, and I tried to use such different tools in learning different uh, topics. Mm, uh, the main toolbox that I use was I used pramanas and symbolic logic, deductive logic, transaction analysis, the modern ways of proving things. For same set of information, I used both kinds of pramanas, and I accepted only when both showed the same results. So using different tools is essential. And what are these different tools? Those different tools are pramana in Ayurveda. So Ayurveda uses many kinds of pramanas. You should not be satisfied by using only one pramana. If there is one pramana, okay, you believe it somewhat. But you also use other pramanas. The biggest exception is pratyaksha praman, because pratyaksha praman is the ultimate praman. If pratyaksha praman, something is proved by pratyaksha praman, then all other pramanas are secondary. That is what Ayurveda says. But while using pratyaksha praman, there are limitations. Those limitations are also clearly stated. So, even if something is proven by pratyaksha praman, we should also look at it as if it is something fake, forged. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, I also taught forensic medicine. And forensic medicine, uh, there is topic called as autopsy. And when I was learning this subject, I was told by my teacher that while doing postmortem, treat every case as if it is a murder unless proved otherwise. That is the orientation required for postmortems. In the same way, even if something seems to be correct by pratyaksha praman, you have to assume that it is illusion. There are many kinds of optical illusions. There are ventriloquists to produce illusions of sound. So you have to distinguish between what is true, what is illusion, what is delusion, what is hallucination. So even if something seems to be proved by pratyaksha pramana, you need to get evidence from other pramanas also. That is what my gurus have told me, and I have been using it. Now, I come to the most crucial part of my today's lecture, because today's lecture is an orientation lecture. It is about why we should learn Padartha Vijnan. And when we are learning something or we are planning to do something, there are specific instructions given in Charak Samhita in Roga Vishajitiya Viman. So what does he say? First thing to look at is Atmanaha Guru Laghavam, Karya Guru Laghavam, prioritization. What is my priority? For a first year student, the priority will be to give correct answers in the exam. But for a researcher, a different priority will be needed. For example, I will give you an example of action of drug. drug X is useful in drug Y, in disease Y. That kind of thing we are testing. Now, for a common patient, if a doctor prescribes that drug for his condition, that is enough proof for him. No problem. He will believe that doctor knows what he is writing, and he believes that. Now, when patient brings that medicine from the store to the doctor for checking, doctor will check its expiry date, spelling correct है ना, सब कुछ देखा जाएगा. I remember one incident. There was a product called as LA6. Means LA in, as if in Los Angeles, and 6 in figures. So LA6, that was the trade name of a particular drug. So doctor told his compounder that give this patient LA6. The compounder thought that what is this LA6? Lasix. And he gave that patient Lasix. Patient landed in crisis, and it was a big incident at that time. So confusion can arise due to the name. So doctor has to ensure that a particular drug, whichever he is giving, whether it is correct or not. Now, another thing happens is patient goes to medical store and gives the prescription. Medical store keeper says, "Oh, that is out of stock. I have this from another pharmacy. Can I give it to you?" Patient says, "No problem. I will ask my doctor whether it is correct or not." Now doctor will have to think whether that particular pharmacy is certified pharmacy or not. It may be cheaper alternative, but whether that company is banned or sometimes it happens that multinational companies dump their medicines in India or any third world country when those drugs are banned in their countries. So that kind of things do happen. So whenever there is substitution, doctor will have to think of many other things, not just the name of the drug or dose. He will have to think whether this particular drug is reliable or not. Now, when we look at the same drug from a regulator point of view, suppose you are FDA inspector and you are visiting that particular pharmacy which produces that drug, then you have different criteria of your examination. You will see whether they have laboratory reports that about purity of the drug, quality of drug, safety of drug, everything. Now, when it comes to a researcher, he will need still more information. about that drug. He will need the molecular formula and three-dimensional structure and such and such things. Now, if you are the regulator in higher position, means if you are part of FDA and some pharmaceutical companies applying for license, then you will have to check that medicine extremely thoroughly before you permit it for marketing. So, see, Karya Guru Ladhav, in all these stages, depending upon the priority of examination, you choose your tools. So that is what Chakra says. Buddhiman Atmanaha Karya Guru Ladhavam Karma Phalam Anubandham Atmano Balam Desha Kalau Yukti Darshanat Shastrameva Aditaha Parikshetu. So, what Charak says is very clearly followed in day-to-day life by most of us. In management theory, whenever you are doing a particular thing, you have to set up the priorities. What is to be done urgently? What is what can be dealt with at some other time? What can be done parallelly? That kind of planning is needed when you are doing any work. So prioritization is the management principle. You need to learn how to prioritize, and that prioritization will depend upon your needs. So when we are learning Padartha Vijnan, we should be very clear about why we are learning Padartha Vijnan. Whether it is just to pass an examination, then just mug up your textbook without understanding. So whatever is written in the book will get transferred to the paper without going through your brain. That will be enough to pass an examination. But if you want to be a good clinician, you will have to learn thinking in Ayurvedic way, in the way of Padartha Vijnan. So, depending upon the priority, Karya Guru Laghava, if you think that learning Padartha Vijnan is something which has a very low priority, then don't learn. But if you think it is good to learn Padartha Vijnan, it will be useful to you, and it is a priority for you to understand what is happening. Something new is happening, then you have to have the tools to learn them. Then next part, Karma Phala Anubandha Atma Bala, it's what is called in management is SWOT analysis or SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are the strengths of learning Padartha Vijnan? What are the weaknesses for us to learn Padartha Vijnan? What opportunities can be gained, or what opportunities will be available if we learn Padartha Vijnan? And what are the threats? All these things are systematically analyzed in management for every new venture. Now, learning Padartha Vijnan is a new venture for most of the audience, because whatever they have learned in the first year BMS is forgotten. What I am going to teach in this series of lectures is entirely different, and we should do a SWOT analysis of the things if we want to learn Padartha Vijnan. So, what are the strengths? Strengths are you get the perspective, you get a point of view, and that point of view is extremely important when you are learning anything new. You can easily distinguish between what is true and what is fake. This is extremely important thing. On WhatsApp, there are so many fake messages that we have to learn the ability to find out the truth in all kinds of messages, whether it is real or fake. We have to learn this technique. Now, previously, what was happening was there were few books, few newspapers. The amount of information that we got was small. But with the advent of internet, there is absolute explosion of information, and we have to learn the ability to separate what is correct and good, reliable, from what is not. And this ability to separate these things you will get from learning Padartha Vijnan. What are the weaknesses? The basic weakness is it is in Sanskrit. Most of the things are in Sanskrit. And unfortunately for us, in Ayurveda syllabus or even in the books, it is according to whatever CCM has prescribed. So there will be n number of terms, and we just learn to enumerate them, never to apply them. And that is the weakness. We learn to enumerate, we learn to recite, we learn to vomit everything in the paper, but we don't learn to understand what is a particular hypothesis. What is some hypothesis? We don't understand. We don't have an insight about what a particular term means. And Believe me, all these are excellent tools, but learning to use tools is a very important activity, because if you are say using you want to mm, screw one thing to another thing, then what tool you use? You use screwdriver. But if you want to fix something with a nail, you use hammer. So which tool to use in a particular situation, that will be the learning objective in Padartha Vijnan. If we learn Padartha Vijnan very well, we will be able to use various tools nicely. But labels, we are so much obsessed with labels and reciting and numbers, and means how many pramanas are described in such and such samhita. That kind of questions are unfortunately um, form the major part of the exam papers, and we learn to pass the exams, not to understand the subject, and that is the weakness. What are the opportunities? If you understand Padartha Vijnan, you will be able to form research questions. You can become a researcher. That is an opportunity for you. And the biggest opportunity is you can learn to use your time very efficiently, because once you are very good at Padartha Vijnan, then you are able to separate information into truth and falsehood. So every day you get 1,000 WhatsApp messages. Out of them, three or four are important. Rest of the messages are ridiculous, and you don't need to spend any time on them. If you learn Padartha Vijnan, you will be able to pick those two or three important messages and delete or ignore all the rest. This ability is an opportunity, and this ability will help you in your life everywhere. You will be able to use this capability while dealing with the patient. Patient is telling long, winding history. You will pick up just the important points from the history, and then ask the patient appropriate questions and arrive at the diagnosis. This
हा सर सुरू करा.
Okay. So shall I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So we are
काही अपरिहार्य कारणामुळे सरांच्या इथला आवाज आत्ता आपल्याला येऊ शकत नाहीये. त्यामुळे आत्ता आपण हे जे YouTube लाईव्हचं आपलं लेक्चर आहे ते इथे थांबवतोय. शेवटचे 2 पॉइंट्स फक्त राहिले होते. आपण बाकीचं जे लेक्चर आहे ते पुढचं लेक्चर जेव्हा शेड्यूल होईल तेव्हा आपण सगळ्यांना कळवू. तरी आपण आत्ता या ठिकाणी आपलं हे YouTube लाईव्ह थांबवतो आहोत. धन्यवाद.